Krag and I are going to be connecting at the ATAP conference next week in Orange County. And Greg's one of those guys that I've learned a lot from. We have a lot of history together. Take some notes from what Krag has to say. He has a lot to share. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
And we have MapQuest printed out on a paper to find out where we're going. If people listening,
it's amazing we were even able to do this job before cell phones or computers. It's amazing. If we had a client that said, yeah, we're Bitcoin, and I would be like, I don't know. We'll see. It's a pretty volatile market. And for this younger generation coming in, we do need you. We do need you.
When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode.
Hey folks, Mark Ludlow here at the Fearless Mindset Podcast. And today, Saturday actually, and Craig's working and I'm working, and the security industry never dies. It's 24/7 operation. And so Krag and I are going to be connecting at the ATAP conference next week in Orange County. And I just wanted to highlight Krag on that, and of course, highlight he was the president of GS3. I've known Krag for many, many years. I started as a little private, we'll call it private Marine Corps terms, and standing post, working strike work for nurses and a certain client of theirs in the Oakland area. And that's where I started. And that's where I met Nick DeBarian at the time, was doing business development stuff for Krag at the time. And before he got big and flew off to greener pastures and all that stuff. But Krag's been running GS3 for many, many years. And he's got global operations, Marine himself. He's done some stuff. And I know there's a lot of guys on social media that do stuff. And there are a lot of guys out there that you guys don't know about that are listening to this podcast that are little hidden gems in the industry that they just don't brag about themselves. They don't need to. They don't need to put themselves out there because they, frankly, got enough business where they don't need the attention. And Greg's one of those guys that I've learned a lot from. We have a lot of history together. And I felt the timing right before ATAP was very perfect to launch this talk, because ATAP is, everything's been shut down for 2 years now, and everybody's getting back together and having EP, Holy Communion, breaking bread, and the other liquids they drink besides that. And it's the time to get together, time to iron sharpens iron. And I just want to invite Krag on the show just to hear his story, what he's seeing out there. He's been in this business a long time. He's seen ups and downs and yo-yos in this industry. And take a pen and paper if you're listening to this, working night shift. If you want to know his little secret sauce about how to survive, how to have longevity in this business, take some notes from what Krag has to say. He has a lot to share. So, Krag, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
You got it. We're going to just have a little conversation, folks, and Krag's wealth of knowledge, and we're just going to dive into his the ATAP thing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and his background with GS3. And so we're just going to jump in and have a conversation, folks. So just chill out, relax, and enjoy the conversation. So, Krag, first of all, what's your involvement with ATAP been like? You've been with them for quite a long time, right?
Yeah, I've been a member of ATAP since 2006 or 2004, actually. And I've been involved in the Northern California chapter the whole time. And I've been on the board of the Northern California chapter for about 5 years now in a couple of different positions. So I'm real familiar with ATAP. It's a great organization. I've seen it grow from 500 members to over 2,500 members. And for what we do as protectors, it's an invaluable, the threat assessment, especially on the human side, threat assessments is an invaluable tool and skill that is ever evolving. And so, like I said, as protectors, it's in our best interest to be experts at it.
Why is ATAP so critical to the industry? Because a lot of people, focus on the close protection conference in Vegas. That's all the bodyguards want to go to that one, and they want to network. But why is ATAP so significant, important, critical to all these security decision makers of all these corporations? Why is it so critical in our industry?
Well, I mean, it's a process in all aspects of security, to be honest. if you're looking at anything, if you're looking at putting physical security measures in place, if you're looking at designing a security program, the threat assessment is pretty much step one, is determining what your threats are. Therefore, you can develop your countermeasures in order to mitigate those threats. So when we talk about executive protection, we're talking about I like to call it human security, because people say, well, what kind of security do you do? Do you do cameras? And say, no, we do the human side of security. So we deal with the human threats mostly. And the behavioral threat assessment processes are very, very important so that we know what we're dealing with. We know what the threats, it validates the threat. It determines, the propensity for violence, the probability for violence. And so the threat assessment process itself is obviously there are different professional judgment tools that we use to determine the criteria and that type of thing. So when we're talking about human security, we're talking about the human threat, which is probably the most complicated threat there is. But it's a nice set of steps to understand the nature of the threat and what we need to do to either interrupt the process of going from threat to violence, or to be able to identify it and address it.
Okay, good point. Very valid point. What do you see with the industry going on? There's been a lot of shifts taking place. A lot of talk of recession. Depends on what news outlet you listen to, obviously. And I was on the phone with QuickList waiting for a deposit to hit my account, and the VP of operations in Florida is telling me small businesses are exploding. Everybody's busy. Everybody's making money. What do you see as far as the shift coming out of the pandemic? Now we're going in our first year kind of out of it. On your desk, what are you seeing?
Well, there's a couple of things that we've noticed, coming out of the pandemic. One, the labor pool has changed drastically. When we had current relationships that we have with providers and individuals before the pandemic caused some people to switch careers, caused some people to retire. So we have a definite shift in the pool of talent that's out there. And of course, I think, the resources, the talent resources and employment resources across the board in any industry right now. Obviously, you go to any restaurant, you go to any, everybody's hiring. Everybody's hiring. So definitely the talent pool has changed. So we've had to kind of revisit some of those resources that we had prior to the pandemic, because when the pandemic happened, we probably lost 40% of our clientele right off the bat, just because of the nature of the services that we provide them. So we had to kind of look and see who was available and what was working and what could work. Coming out of the pandemic, we're doing the same thing, because now those clients are coming back online. And so when those clients come back online, because whatever services we're providing for them, they now we have to kind of almost find some new resources, because companies have either gone out of business, or they've merged with other companies, or they've been bought by, the big monstrosity that is Allied right now. So that whole shift has changed. That whole landscape has changed a lot. So it's us being able to adjust, to identify new resources, to identify, spark up those relationships again. In regards to clients right now, especially since that the R word is being thrown around a lot with recession, in any recession, you really kind of see two different things. You see, one, the clients' purse strings start to tighten up, budgets start to get cut. We're dealing with some of that right now mid-project, where all of a sudden it's, well, corporate has said this, so we have to cut this and that and this, which is never optimal for us, being the providers of protective services and such. But so we're seeing that happen. And in conjunction to that, we also see that the priorities of our corporate security clients and our corporate clients change from a security standpoint. When things are good, everybody's being prosperous, there is a little bit more focus on the proactive parts of what we provide. The assessments, the consultations, the reviews, those type of things, those proactive things that say, you know what, we may have an issue here in the future. Let's build something beforehand to get ready for it. We see the shift now going to completely reactive. Well, let's not deal with it until it happens or until it's imminent. So in recessive times, I have personally seen that kind of shift go back and forth. When things get better, we start getting, I know when our clients are doing better from a business standpoint is when they start talking about those proactive measures. Oh, okay, things must be going well, that type of thing. So right now, those are the two biggest factors, to be honest, is that many clients are like, hey, we're back because we deal with, a human-centric type of service, with event security and people want to get back in front of their faces. They want to get back and they want to have that personal interaction. And so those are some of the challenges right now are because when that happens, especially when the shift in mentality changes, you have two things. You have, there's always a balance. There's a little ratio between value and cost. So now you're going to have clients say, hey, your cost is too much, but I want the same value. Like, oh, okay. All right. You want the same value, but then you're going to cut costs on me. Or they say, hey, we'll continue to pay you what you're getting paid, but what else are you going to give me? What other value are you going to add to that? So I think that providers and enterprise providers like ourselves and your group have to look forward and say, okay, what can we add that, one, differentiates us, and two, lets the client know that we care about the relationship and that we're going to give them some extra. So those are probably the three things I see going on coming out of COVID, and then having the financial issues that the country and the world is actually having right now.
Yeah. Do you see the EP industry, what it was before the pandemic hit us, mutating, changing, evolving into a new type of EP industry because of the shift that's just taking place? There's different protocols by corporations that are demanding different things. And how do you see the future of executive protection from what it was?
Well, I think, again, and it ties back into the change of the labor pool. So in our cadre, in our employee cadre, we had a lot of retired law enforcement. Well, we lost 95% of them because they retired. They didn't want to hustle. They were at home or whatever they may be. So we lost a segment of our talent pool. Well, you also lost a segment of subject matter expertise. We lost some of that as well. So I think the shift now is that the people that are coming into the industry were born in the period of the internet. We're born in the period, grew up with the internet, grew up with technology, maybe even growing up with cell phones, the 20, 25, 30-year-old that's coming into executive protection now grew up in a different time. So I think the executive protection the basics will always be there. The principles are always the same. They're tried and true. But what I do believe is that technology, and specifically artificial intelligence, AI, will play a bigger part in executive protection in providing data analysis, in addition to being able to provide correlated and analytical data in almost real time. So what that will do for, let's say, the executive protection agent or the provider for their clients is you'll have a better chance of staying off the X. You have a much better chance of staying off the X because you'll have real-time intelligence. You'll be able to adjust. And I see technology playing a huge part of the future of executive protection. And this is because it plays a huge part in the way our clients do business. Technology and artificial intelligence and all this other type of stuff is just on the forefront of business now. So it needs to be on the forefront of our service offerings as well. And so that's the big shift that I would see. And then again, the new group, the new agents that are coming to the field, they come from a different generation. And so, getting them to be able to, or even for us old guys, for us long too, getting us to be able to understand, what their definition of things are. We have clients in the Silicon Valley, where their security director is 30 years old. His definition of security is much different than what mine is, even though we're kind of trying to talk the same language. So I think, for those of us that have been around for quite a while, us being able to assimilate, at least in concept, to what the new generation is coming through, I think that's going to be, a challenge for us as far as, you guys have been around for a while. But I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but I mean, those are things that I think about often as far as longevity and how we, to make sure the translation is there.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. As soon as when rest in peace to Kevin there. He got shot in Oakland. He actually worked with us on several projects. And when I was running an operation on Facebook campus there for a little while, got to work with some Hayward retired coppers. And as soon as I went down after Kevin passed away, I had probably a dozen phone calls of guys that were retired coppers saying, hey, talk to my wife. It's not really worth it for me anymore. A dozen calls.
Right.
And those guys are sharp guys. I mean, sergeant, detectives, lieutenants. Not really worth it. I'm not going to get shot over a staging post and watching the bank or whatever we're doing. And I'm like, wow. So, like you said, there's a lot of people leaving the industry. There's not worth it for them. They're going to lose a pension and get shot and be, it's just they're weighing the risk versus the rewards, and it's not worth it.
Right.
For their
and COVID kind of pushed them out. COVID kind of gave them the reason to, okay, well, there's not going to be any work. There was a period there when, we didn't know if the world was going to fall apart. It was, I mean, there was a period there, like you saw all the cracks, you saw all the cracks in society, and you saw all the cracks, and you're like, wow, is this really going to go down like this? And so I think COVID gave a lot of people, the umph to say, you know what, we're going to come out of this. Once we saw that we were going to come out of it, that it wasn't going to wipe out, it wasn't going to be some kind of disaster film. You know what I mean? And once they realized that, everybody reevaluated a little bit. You spent more time at home, and I think that event will shape generations to come, to be honest. So, but yeah, we lost a whole bunch of guys. So.
Yeah, I think I would say you're right on that, and I would say the people that have mastered social media as a platform to recruit the young generation, because that's where the young generation live. They just say, as much as people say they hate Facebook and LinkedIn and all of those stuff, Facebook is where a lot of people live. I mean, it's a stupid platform. I hate using it, but I mean, people are giving their life story in that thing, and there's different divisions of Facebook where you can find people looking, but it's weird. Nobody really wants to. They don't check Indeed. Craigslist not the thing anymore that it used to be. Back in the day when I worked, it was Craigslist.
Right.
Back in 2008, when I got in the industry, it was Craigslist, and I had my flip phone. We didn't have smartphones, and we had MapQuest printed out on a paper to find out where we were going. If people listen again,
it's amazing we were even able to do this job. It was amazing we were able to do this job before cell phones or computers. It's amazing. I don't even know how they did it before technology was able for me to call you immediately or to do what we're doing now. It's unfathomable to me to be like,
how did we get through that?
This? Right.
How did we get through that? And then your flip phone had a text message thing, and they text you. That was it. It's like, and then you had to find your way to work on MapQuest and take the right turn.
Right.
And you guys listening to this, that was how rough it is when back in the day when, back in the 2000 era, when I got into the business, it wasn't that easy. And getting a job, you didn't have Facebook. Mm-hmm. You requested to Craigslist. That was where you found jobs, or you would respond to Craigslist ad. That was a place to go to find jobs.
Right. And you would find what companies were in your area. And I did this. I'm just show up with a resume in hand. I showed up with resume in hand, and I'm like, I'm looking for work. And they were like, oh, okay. And luckily, the second company I talked to hired me. But it's and you and I have talked about LinkedIn before. LinkedIn every now and then sways into that Facebook realm, where it
does. Totally does.
And it's unfortunate because I think LinkedIn's a great tool. That's a platform. The mission of that platform, I agree 100% with. It's a business, business to business connectivity, that type of thing. But I do see some of that personal stuff coming in and out, and it will turn people off if it continues down that road.
True.
So,
but I think the trust is established at like a conference like ATAP. Going to after hour party, getting to know each other. That's where the trust is really established in the industry. Getting to know people face to face, having those conversations, sharing those personal experiences with each other, breaking bread, as we call it in the industry. Yeah. And once you do that, you establish that trust and rapport, and then you get that call down the road. And if you guys are struggling to find work, I mean, you got to go to conferences where you get the the kiss of the ring by the Holy Pope as we kind of, you build a trust factor. And that's where the networking is so crucial in this industry.
Right.
And then, you know, and then you go to the EP course, you know, 3-day course. And to be honest with you, the EP courses are really a networking device. You're going to get your best benefit is networking and to get future jobs. I mean, that's the benefit of EP, executive training, pistol course and all that. But as far as, you know, business to business goes, people have to know you, like you, then trust you. And then you're talking maybe a business contract months down the road. But that pipeline turnaround takes 6 months just to close a deal sometimes.
Right. And it's you know, what we do, it requires an elevated level of trust. We don't sell widgets. We don't sell washing machines. We don't, you know, sell cars. You know, everything that we do is critical, you know, to the client. It's embarrassing. Discretion is always required. And so that elevated level of trust is, like you're saying, is really developed at conferences, really developed at gatherings, where you can look at somebody's face and you can look them in the eye and you can be like, you know what, you know, my BS meter is pretty accurate, and this guy's not BSing me, because there's a lot of those too, a lot of those guys. But yeah, definitely. And you're right about the EP school. The EP school is really a networking environment. And, you know, it does teach the basics. I mean, I think I've worked in a diamond formation one time in my entire career, and more times than not, it's been just me playing the sheepdog, which is a whole nother concept. And so, yeah, it's definitely the conferences and definitely the, you know, the schools and that type of thing, the trainings and that type of thing will develop your networks for a future job, like you're saying. And you've made a living off of that. Of networks like that, you know.
Yep, it's true.
And you know, but that brings a good point about your reputation is everything in this industry.
It is.
Your reputation is everything. The minute that you do go below board for whatever reason, for the almighty dollar, that will follow you, and it does. And so, you know, to all the kiddos out there who are getting into this, you know, don't BS people, because BS meters are pretty good, and you know, and keep it above board.
And the industry is so small too, is people don't realize who knows who. Like I did it.
Oh, yeah.
We had a project in Southern California. I'm not going to name names or call anybody out on this, but a conversation was had, and a friend said, "Well, I know Mark Ludlow too." He's like,
Right.
It's just a small world. You just don't want to burn bridges. It's not worth burning bridges. Not worth stealing contracts, because word does spread. Because when it's slow, guess what people do? They talk.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad news is the fastest news to hit everybody. And
line goes around the world 10 times as fast as the truth. Absolutely. And
so if you're a young guy trying to make an impression and trying to hand out your business card, your phone number to everybody, just be careful, because you have a detail lead watching you, and you just don't want to piss them off.
Right. And I think with the older generation, to make sure that the younger generation comes in and understands the etiquette of business and understands that you don't hand your business card to the client. You know, you don't do that, you know, because there is a lot of work, you know, but good executive protection gigs domestically they're not as many as people think there are, you know, and everybody's vying for the same. You know, I'll use the Bay Area, for example. Everybody's vying for the Yahoos and the Facebooks and the Googles and all the big fish. They're all trying to get on those teams. And you're right. It's a very small industry. And the second cousin rule does apply. And the second cousin rule is like, hey, I worked with this guy on this project, and he was solid, and he was above board, and he knew what he was doing, and I recommend him. So, you know, it's always best that they're at their best. Because remember, executive protection is just, it's huge bouts of boredom interrupted by sheer seconds of terror or sheer seconds of panic. And so people get in trouble doing those huge areas of boredom. They start doing this, and all of a sudden that gets around. And as you know, the rumor mill in the EP field is, boy, it's always churning. So
what's your advice to the younger guys that like to play on their phone and take selfies on social media while working, Greg? What's your rule on that one?
I think you know what my rule is. You know, it's there's a lot of people that do it. And they do it because I believe it feeds a certain amount of ego a little bit, like, look who I'm standing next to type of thing. I've done some celebrity stuff in the past. And it's always been, discretion's always been appreciated by the client. I had a client tell me one time that he had multiple EP guys, multiple PSOs, throughout the time. And that he always felt very uncomfortable taking a picture when the detail was over and the PSO said, "Hey, sir, can you get a picture with you?" He felt very uncomfortable about that because he didn't think that it was appropriate. He's like, "Well, yeah." But he would always do it. He's a very nice gentleman, very nice gentleman. And he'd always do it. But he told me that one time in the car, I was taking him to the airport, and he said, he goes, "You're not going to ask me to take your picture and take my picture with you, are?" And I said, "No, sir. Why would I do that?" No. He goes, "You'd be surprised how many security guys try to do that with me." And he said, I'm not real comfortable with it. And I said, "You don't have to worry about that for me." So, and phones are a huge issue. We deal with them. We don't deal with them, at our level. Like I said, the EP echelon is what I consider the higher level or higher echelon of private security. You should know that, your job is to be alert, vigilant, and all that type of thing. And cell phones are a huge distraction for everybody. I would say stay off of them. There's nothing in them. There's nothing critical that when you're working that you need to look at that. And if it's your job to be on the cell phone, you also, you're a DL or an ADL and you have to be on your phone and communicating, then you obviously will have somebody else keeping the eye out for you. So, the young guys, I think the guys coming in there is the hard skills are required. The hard skills are the sexy part, the shooting, the driving, the all that type of stuff, the movements. But the soft skills are what are going to get you work. The soft skills are what's going to get you. Yeah, they're what's going to get you work. For anybody new, I would say learn your Microsoft Office suite, at least Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Because at some point, as a DL, ADL, for a large strike, whatever it may be, you're going to be required to bring some report. You're going to have to design a report. You're going to develop a report. And as you know, in this industry, perception's a reality. Mm-hmm. So if you look at coming across that, I have gone in my career, I've had several opportunities because I could do a good PowerPoint. Move me into the corporate side of enterprise security. So definitely learn that because it's all technology. It's all going to be technology. Learn how to use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is now become the unofficial communication platform for a ton of security people. So, yeah.
Now, Signal, I've heard people prefer to use Signal or there's some other app that it seems complicated to me. I just don't get Signal. I don't understand it, but WhatsApp seems to be an easier thread to keep track of, numbers and hours and reports and all that type of thing.
And I like it because it's exportable. So whenever we're done with the detail, we export everything into a file. You can't do that with your text. Well, you can do that with your text, but if something happens to your phone with text, you usually lose all your text. So you don't have any of that. So,
sure.
But like you, I have a couple of team members who are very good with WhatsApp because I'm not that good with it. So they're pretty solid. Yeah, they're younger. They're a little more solid. Yeah. But that's the natural progression of things. You get the longer you stay in this industry, the more mentorship opportunities there are. There are more to say, hey, listen, if I don't know everything, I haven't experienced everything, but there's a couple of pitfalls landmines that I did not avoid that you can avoid. Let me tell you. Let me impart a little bit of knowledge on you, type of thing. And that's a pretty satisfying part at this stage in my career, anyways. Is that where I'm able to actually impart knowledge and some wisdom and stories. The war stories are very important, and be able to impart that on the new generation coming through, the future leaders of the industry, to be honest.
Yeah, I see a lot of movement in the corporate arena, especially corporate security positions within big corporations. Seems like a lot of shifting going on right now. A lot of people jumping from A company to B company. Right. Are you seeing that too?
I see it. I'm seeing it out of season. So, and what I mean by that is that the first quarter of every year, January, February, and March, I call it free agency because that's when people have been laid off or people are leaving jobs or people are going here. So you have in the talent pool, you have more of the security director type, because sometimes they go through a circuit. Like I've known a security director that was a mid-level security director for Salesforce and then they went to Google, and then they do this circuit sometimes where they spend 3-4 years and then they go and they find another job. COVID changed all that with this reduction in the overall talent pool, I feel. So right now there's a lot of jobs that are open. So it's almost like free agency, quote unquote, like I call it, beginning of each year in the middle of the year, because companies are still trying to make money. They're still trying to, they're trying to get operations back. They're trying to get that momentum back that they lost during COVID, but there's a labor shortage. So some of those positions are open. So you are going to have people shift. I've noticed a lot of guys that have been working for companies for 15 years left and went to a startup, wanted a different challenge, whatever it may be. But the opportunities are there for them to do that. If it was still kind of like it was pre-COVID, where you only have a small percentage of positions that are open due to retirement or even firing or whatever it may be, now you have, 5 times that amount of opportunities. So people, after reevaluating their lives, being at home for 2 years, said, you know what, it's time to make a change. And I'm seeing a lot of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Miami got really hit with the Bitcoin. There's a lot of new Bitcoin money. And a lot of details got axed in the last 4 to 5 months from different contacts that I have in Silicon Valley. Like, you guys are multi-billionaires because of Bitcoin, and all the teams got laid off. Right. And marijuana was another one, the weed industry. There are a lot of some guys in LA running around, big, like, Secret Service level mercenary teams, and the weed industry is taking a dump because, inflation, recession happened on the dollar. Right.
Well, that industry is taxed. That industry is like super, super taxed. So, that has to flourish at all times and be, going 100%, forward for it to make, the money that they're used to making. But yeah, some of those industries that are still, they're still budding to some degree, no pun intended. The Bitcoin thing is, it's boy, that's a challenge. If we had a client that said, we're Bitcoin, and I would be like, I don't know. We'll see. It's a pretty volatile market.
Right.
But yeah. So, but
you have a pretty good pulse on the Bay Area. What is the up and coming thing in the Bay Area now? You always have the young stars that are trying to create a new product and all that. Do you see Bay Area still being the hotbed of EP like it used to be, or is that shifting?
I think it's still, I think it still will be, as long as you have the Silicon Valley component. You have companies leaving the Bay Area, big companies like Charles Schwab left. Charles Schwab has been in San Francisco for 100 and some odd years. They left and went to Fort Worth because of the business environment there. You have some of these big companies that have left the Bay Area that are going to Texas or going to places that are much more tax friendly and that type of thing. But the Silicon Valley is in my opinion, the economic generator for the northern part of the state. If you can imagine that Apple and Google and Yahoo and all these other ones left, Facebook, they left and went to another state, you would see huge drops, I feel, in state revenue. It would be insane. So as long as those guys are there, there's always going to be, from an EP standpoint, those are always going to be the details to want to get. As far as if you're big enough to go after those and fight the companies that have them now. But on that secondary and that tertiary level and the levels down here, there's huge bandwidth of huge opportunities for companies like ours to go in and let those guys duke it out for the big fish, because there's plenty of good medium-sized fish in there to compete against. And with the creation of the behemoth that is Allied Universal now, there's always going to be a certain percentage that doesn't want to deal with something that huge, that wants a boutique approach. And that's where companies like your company and my company come in, because we're small, we're high speed, low drag. We come in, we're efficient, and we're personable. Like you talked about, associations and meetings and gatherings. A client wants to look in your face, and you want to face-to-face with them, and you want to be able to say, I am Mark Ledlow. I'm obviously the president of Ledlow Security Group, and I'm promising you this is what we're going to do for you. And that goes a long way. 35% of the entire industry from a security director standpoint wants to see that, wants that kind of, not just you're an account. I have an account manager from Allied. I have an account. They want that. Hey, I understand how important this is. Important enough for me to take time as leader of my company to come down and talk to you. And they love that. And I find that clients, the right clients appreciate that 100%. Right.
Yeah. The biggest complaint I've been hearing is the turnaround time, response time they're getting. They're a large organization. I'm not going to say names or who, but it's taken 2 to 3 days for them to get a response from different organizations to pull the trigger on a deployment on an operation. And like you and I, they call us deploy tomorrow. You have the blessing of you're legal and you're the decision maker. I'm the decision maker. Problem solved. We'll have a guy, a driver for you in Akron, Ohio, for a 5-day detail for a C-suite representative of that organization. You don't need turnaround time for us. You'll get an answer like same day.
Right. And again, we don't have the multiple levels of bureaucracy and infrastructure that those large organizations have. And I always like to say, in our field, the wheel's been invented. There are 5,000 companies like yours and mine in this country, at least, I'm sure. So we all do the same kind of thing. We all provide the same kind of services, but it's the application of that wheel that differentiates you. For example, there are certain things that we can control. What you're talking about right there. I called somebody to get service and I didn't hear back from them for 2 days. Well, I tell you that we're going to give you a call right back, or we're going to answer our phone. I can control that. I can control that. I can make that a focus of our organization. I can say, focus on response. This is what we're doing, because those other companies are not responding, and it gives us an opportunity to say, yes. Oh, wow. You called me back in like 15 minutes. Absolutely. How can I help you? There are things that we can do as smaller companies that will push us and differentiate us, because everybody's providing the same stuff. Well, protective services, whatever it may be. So, so just finding those little niches that you can stand above, not only, the group that you're in already, the higher, the bandwidth that you're already operating in, but those big ones too, the big monsters. So, yeah.
Yeah, for the folks listening, the EP security industry that we're in is a $45 billion industry in the United States alone. 45 with a B billion. So there's plenty of cookies to go around.
Yeah. No, without a doubt, and it's a matter of just hustle. That's what it is. How hard are you willing to hustle for it? And because it is there. And there are plenty of groups in our industry that don't hustle, and so, there's competition, and if you do it better, at least you're on a level playing field to some degree, so yeah.
How long you been in the business, Krag?
Let's see, I got, my first executive protection detail was in 1994.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a short one. It was only 4 days. But it was the first one that I was on, and it was a celebrity. It was a celebrity detail too, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of halls and walls, but I did get to play PSO for 1 day. But that was my first one. Yeah.
1994. So, wow.
1994. I did it for quite a while, and then I went to some different security. I went to corporate security. Guard force management and all sorts of different stuff for a while. And then I didn't really get back into it full time until, as cliche as it sounds, 9/11. 9/11 happened, and I was like, you know what? I got ultra focused, and I got back into the gig. And then I went overseas in 2003. I went over to the Sandbox and was over there and did a couple of gigs over there, and then came back. And my wife said, "You're not doing that anymore." Well, I did a lot of traveling in other places in Pakistan. Yeah. And then she said no more. And so I got to the corporate side and worked for a couple of companies. And then we started GS3 in 2010. So, yeah.
2010. Wow.
Yeah. So.
Dang. That's some longevity.
Yeah. It's just, you can't beat being ethical and you just have to operate with ethics and integrity. You have to fall on the sword when you have to fall on the sword, and you'll develop relationships with those organizations, not just the people within the organization, people leave, like we just talked about. But with those organizations, you develop a reputation of your organization within that organization. And instead of saying, hey, we're going to call Krag, they say, hey, we're going to call GS3.
Right.
Because everybody in GS3 is sharp. And so I think that's a huge emphasis in our culture from our company standpoint. Is like, hey, you got to have ethics and integrity. People screw up. Admit when you screw up, tell the client, hey, we screwed up, but this is what we're going to do to fix it. This is what we're going to do to make it up, kind of thing. So, yeah.
GS3 stands for what again?
GS3 stands for Global Secure, the number 3. So when we started GS3, we were trying to come up with a name for it, and everybody at that time was something Security International or International Group, Global So they had all these different taglines, and everybody was some kind of group or some kind of organization or some kind of international or something like that, or security, global, internet, everything was somebody like that. So I told him, I said, let's just pick something, and, we'll make it sound European. Global security. Yeah, it sounds like it's a European company, because it's English, but it's not, not global security. It's not, so my partners were like, yeah, that sounds good. And I said, you know what? The 3 can mean anything. The 3 can mean there's 3 partners. The 3 can mean that there's the 3 main service offerings that we have. I said, so what, so your title itself can be a talking point with clients. What does Global Secure 3 mean? Well, let me tell you the story, So, so we settled on that. So we would sound different than everybody else.
So you have those 3 partners, right?
I have 2 partners. Yeah.
2 partners. Okay. Including you. Got it.
Yeah. So, but, so far it's been a very good ride. I've been blessed. I've been blessed. It's good to see the fruits of your labor when you feel that you're doing the right thing. What we do as protectors, it's a righteous calling. It is. It's a righteous calling. We protect people from other people. And there's a lot of satisfaction in that. There's a lot of satisfaction in knowing that the things that we do, we make money. You have to make money, but the things that we do are protecting people from other people, and like I said, I push that in our culture a lot. What we do, is righteous. What we do is, has an elevated level of satisfaction. So
is a year looking pretty good? The rest of this year looking good for you guys over there?
Oh, we're busy. Yeah, we're really busy. I mean, we're really busy. Like I said, a lot of our clients have come back from COVID, and that's been nice. And then of course we're doing some, we're at ATAP at the conference. We actually have a booth and exhibiting, and we just started doing that, believe it or not, after 12 years, but and making our presence much more known, and getting out there. And we've got a good track record, and got a good name as far as I know, good reputation of doing the right thing and treating people right. And we're going to take all of that, and we're going to put the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal, and we're going to see how we can grow this thing. But
I think we're going to be looking to some very prosperous couple of years with the way the economy is and the country is. And someone said, when you have chaos, it's business opportunity for the security industry. So we'll capitalize on it.
It is what it is. I like chaos. I used to use, as tragic as it sounds, sometimes it is tragic, but there's always a need, and we definitely live in a very fractured and jagged world right now where things are very sharp. And that does provide, an opportunity for, one of the things that sentient beings need is just security. So,
never going away.
I don't think so either. I might go away. You might go away, but
security.
These things will live on, right? These things will live on, right? Right.
They're going to have it. Well, with that said, we'll wrap this up. And for those of you who don't know what ATAP is, check out the ATAP. They're on LinkedIn. You can check out Krag. He's on LinkedIn as well. And he's on the board of ATAP, and he's also the president of GS3. And they're moving and grooving and making things happen over there in the Bay Area and around the world, for that matter. They got clients they service all around the world. So thanks for coming on, Krag, and any parting words to the young generation?
No, it's thanks for having me. And for this younger generation coming in, we do need you. We do need you. We need you. Our clients need you. Those people that need protection need you. So we welcome you. And try to learn as much from the old guys as you possibly can. That's what I always ask for. Always be a student. Always ask, questions. Always, why did we do this? Why did we do that? Learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can, so that you could be a viable part of any team.
There you go, folks. There's his golden nugget. So you can finish writing up your notepad and send us an email if you want, LinkedIn. Reach out to us there. You can have further questions about how let these us old guys mentor and coach you and be a success and seeing off your phones while working on a detail. Just kidding. No negative comments on LinkedIn, please. I will delete them. With that said, we'll wrap up the show, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of The Fearless Mindset. Talk to you guys soon, and be careful and be safe.